Good morning students, how are you all? I hope you are fine. So last class we already discussed about classification of materials, yes or no? Yeah, good, you have remember, yeah, good. So today we will start a new chapter, a relative chapter of classification of materials. Do you know what that chapter? Okay, let me tell you. Your new chapter name is separation of substances. What's it? Separation of substances. Okay. So you told me, sir, what do you mean by substances? Then why we need separation? If we have substances there, then why we need separation? Why we separate them? So first we will know that what is substances. Okay. So remember, in our surroundings, whatever things are available, that known as substances. That may be your table or chair, that may be your sunlight or air, whatever may be, that all known as substances, or otherwise known as materials also. Okay. So that substances and materials, how they are made up of? Sir, that bench is made by the wood. Okay, good. That chair is made by the iron. Okay, but how this wood and iron also made up of? Now remember, when these substances or that known as materials, these are made by matters. What are that? Known as matters. These things, materials, matters, these are you have already read in standard 5. Okay. So the chapter molecules, where it is made up of. Yes or no? Okay. So materials are made up of by the matters. Okay. Sir, materials are made by matters. Then matter should be made up of some things. Yeah, sure. So these materials are made by the particles, okay, or known as molecules. That known as molecules. Sir, what do you mean by molecules? Can we see the molecules? Yes, we can see the molecules, but these are very small, so we cannot see in our naked eye. Okay. So the materials are made by the matters and the matters are made by the molecules. Sir, molecules should be made of some things? Yeah, sure. These molecules are made by atoms. Okay. This is not your chapter, that is atoms. Okay. It is higher class in standard 9. You will read that what is atoms and what is molecules. Okay. What are atoms and what are molecules? But here the materials are made by matters and matters are made by molecules, and molecules are made by atoms which are very tiny, like the microorganisms, you cannot see them. Okay. So the substances means the things which are available in our surroundings. Yes or no? These are known as substances. Then question came, sir, if we have a lot of substances in our surroundings, then why we require separation? Why we separate them? Okay. So if we will not separate them, can it will be easy to use them? Okay, let just give you one example. You are eating rice, yes or no? In rice, if some stones will be there, if in rice there are some stones will be present inside it, can you eat it? Obviously no. Okay, so you cannot eat it. Why? Now because you want to eat only rice, because but in that place some stones are there, so you cannot eat it also, and if you will be eat it, that maybe your teeth will be break down. Okay, so only we need rice, so that in that place we require separation. Yes or no? Like the other examples are there also, we need separation due to the better development or better uses. Then your answer is, your question is, why we need separation? Why we need separation? Okay. Sir, why we need separation? Remember, we separate the things or the substances basically for two reasons. What are they? Now first one, to get useful substances. Okay. And another thing, to remove unuseful or undesirable substances. Okay. So we require separation for two reasons. First one is to get useful substances. What do you mean by useful substances? Suppose we just separate stones or the rice from the stones. Okay, it means rice is the useful substance. Yes or no? And here to remove unuseful means the stones are unuseful, or we can say that undesirable substances which are not required to us. Okay, so these are the two reasons, so that we require separation. Okay, then remember, what is the meaning of separation? What is the meaning of separation? Okay, what is separation? Separation means to remove one thing from others. Okay, that known as separation. When you are removing something from one thing to other, that known as separation. Okay. Then question came that different types of mixtures are there. Mainly solid and liquid mixtures are there. Suppose we get one example, that is the mixture of stones in the rice or stones in the pulses. That is the solid. If we will be think that liquid also separation, liquid substance or liquid solutions are there. Yes or no? So if some things or some solid particles are there which are dissolved in water or which are not dissolved in water also, can we get that solid particles or the substances by the process which are helping to separate the solid particles from the solid particles? Okay, that's not possible. So the solution or the mixture, there are the two types of substance. One is mixture, okay, one is component, another is mixture. Okay, just wait. One is pure substance, another is mixture. Okay, so there are two types of substances. What are they? The first one is pure substances, second one is mixtures. Okay, so pure substance means that made by only one particles. Okay, one particles, but the mixture means that is the mix of or made up of by many particles. Okay, so if we think that pure substance, it means made by one particles only or one components only. They are iron, gold, silver, diamond. Okay, so these are the pure substance because they are made by only one particles. But if you think that mixture, there is the mix of different things. Suppose in your home also or in your food also, there one mixture is there, or in our school also one mixed curry is there. Yes or no? So what do you mean by mixed curry? Why it is saying that mixture or mixed curry? Now because mixed curry, it is saying because it is the mix of or the made by the different vegetables. Yes or no? So that it is known as mixtures. And in your home also you are eaten in your day to day life, that is mixture. Okay, there are also different type of materials, different type of components are present inside it, so that is known as mixtures. Okay, so there are two type of substance, one is pure substance, another is mixture. Okay, pure substance are made by only one particle, and mixtures are made by the different particles or different components. Okay, so now we will see the methods of separation. The methods of separation. Methods of separation. So, when we are separating something, it means we are separating solid from solids, we are separating solid from liquids, we are also separating the liquids from liquids. Yes or no? So, the process are different for the separation of solid, liquid particles also. Okay. So, first we will see that what are the process involved to separate solid from solid, solids from solids. Okay, so separate the process involved which are using for the separating, or we can write the separating solids from solids. Okay, what are they? Now, first process we are using that known as hand picking method. Hand picking method. Okay. Second one is threshing. Third one is winnowing. Okay, and fourth one is sieving. Okay, so these are the four processes which are involved to separate solid from solids. Okay, so these are the process, that is hand picking method, threshing, winnowing and sieving. These are involved in the separation of solid particles. Okay. Now we will discuss one by one. Okay. First we will discuss about, that is hand picking method. Hand picking method. Here the method is telling about himself. How? Now it is saying that हैंड पिकिंग, ओके, जो तुम हाथ से उठा सकते हो, दैट नोन एज हैंड पिकिंग मेथड. सो द प्रोसेस इन व्हिच द सेपरेशन ऑफ सॉलिड सब्सटेंसेस फ्रॉम ए मिक्सचर बाय द हैंड, दैट प्रोसेस इज नोन एज हैंड पिकिंग मेथड. ओके, रिमेंबर द प्रोसेस by which separation of solid particles from mixture by hand is called hand picking method. Hand picking method. Okay, it means the process by which separation of solid particles from a mixture by hand, that process is known as your hand picking method. You can, previously whatever I was telling, that the separation of stones from the rice, separation of stones from the pulses. Okay, so these are the examples of hand picking method. Next we will discuss about the process which involved the separation of solid from solid, that is the another method, okay, that known as threshing, What is the meaning or what do you mean by threshing? Remember, threshing means we are living in town, so that we did not actually know about the threshing, but the students which are coming from the village area, they know that is what is threshing, but they don't know that process is known as threshing. Yes or no? So you know that after the cultivation of rice or crops, it is required also we just take into our home. Also we will separate one in Odia, that noda is there. Noda to ame kon kariba, we will separate the crops or the grains. Okay, so that process is known as threshing. If we will be definition wise, we will say that the process by which the separation of stuffs from the grains, that process is known as threshing. Listen again, the process by which the separation of husks, okay, separation of stuffs from the grains, that process is known as threshing. Okay, separation of stuffs from grains is known as threshing. Okay, and after the threshing, in that also cultivation of rice, another process used, that known as winnowing. Okay, what do you mean by winnowing? Winnowing means the separation of light particles or light unuseful particles from the heavier particles, that process is known as winnowing. Okay, winnowing means the separation of lighter particles from heavier particles by the wind, by the help of wind, that process is known as winnowing. Okay, so remember, the separation of lighter particles from heavier particles by the help of wind. Okay, that process is known as winnowing. So we discussed three process. First process was hand picking method, second threshing, and third one is winnowing. So we left another process or the last process which are involved to separate the solid particles from the solids. That process is known as sieving. Okay, so now we will discuss about sieving. Okay, S-I-E-V-I-N-G. So what do you mean by sieving? Actually, in hand picking method, we saw the unuseful substances. In threshing, we also see the separation of stuffs, separation of grains. Then in winnowing, we saw the separation of lighter particles from heavier particles. But here in sieving, we will see, or it is in this place, the things which is required, that is size. The size is the most important thing. It means the separation of the separation of substances which are differ in size. Differ in size, that process known as sieving. Sir, what do you mean by differ in size? If we will take a small ball, that is the tennis ball, and we will take the football. Okay, if some of the places, some of the footballs are there, some of the tennis balls are there. If we want to separate, how we will separate? According to their size. It means we will separate tennis ball, that is small size, we will separate them, or the football, they are bigger in size, we separate to another place. It means the separation of substances which are different in size or differ in size, that process is known as sieving. Okay, so these are 4 processes involved to separate solid particles from solid particles. Sir, okay, these are the 4 processes. But if those particles or some of the particles are present in the liquid, okay, it will be the maybe dissolved or not dissolved in the liquid, then how we will separate them? If the solid particles present inside the liquid particles, then how we will just remove them? Sir, suppose if more water means that is water with some of the solid particles will be there inside it. If that particles will be there, then how we can separate them? We will use hand picking method. Can we take the more small particles or more? No, sir. Okay. So can you use the threshing by using the machine? Can we do it? No, sir. Sir, can we use it winnowing? Can we just do it by the wind also? No. Sir, we can use it by the process of sieving, because solid particles are there or liquid that does not have any particles, so we can do it. It is possible? No. So what are the process involved to separation of solid particles from the liquid? Okay, so we will see that process. The separation of solid particles from liquid. From liquids. So remember, when anything mixed with the water or mixed with the liquid, that form another substance that known as solution. Okay, when liquid is there and one thing will be added. Okay, just take one example. If water is here, okay, here water is present, you just add with water. Okay, you will just add some salt. It will give a new substance that known as salty water or saline water. Okay, that will give the another substance. Remember, water is known as solvent, salt is known as solute, and the new substance which form that known as solution. That known as solution. It means when solvent mixed with the solute, that form a new thing that known as solution. Okay, so let's discuss about the particles, the separation of solid particles from liquid. Okay, what are the process involved to separation of liquid particles? Okay, separation of solid particles from liquids. Okay, so there are also 3 processes involved, and remember the solid particles, some of the solid particles, they are dissolved in water, like the salt, sugar, they are dissolved in water. But some particles are there, they will not dissolve with the water, they will not mix with the water. You can take example of mud, or you can take example of sand. They will not dissolve in water. Yes or no? Good. So we are, what about the process involved to separation of dissolved solid particles, that are not applicable for the separation of the particles which are not dissolved in water, okay, or mixable or not dissolved in water, okay. So the process is different. So first we will see that the process by which we can separate the solid particles which are not dissolved in water, okay. So separation of solid particles from liquid but not dissolved, okay, which are undissolved. So there are three processes involved to separation of solid particles or undissolved particles from the liquids. What are they? Now first process known as sedimentation. Okay. Next process known as decantation. And the last process known as filtration. Okay. So these are the three processes: sedimentation, decantation and filtration, used to separation of solid particles which are not dissolved in liquids. Okay. So we will discuss one by one. Before that, we just see here. Okay. So here I have taken a container and inside it muddy water is present. Muddy water. Okay. It means some liquids are there and some solid particles are also there which are not dissolved by liquids. So what are the process used to separate the water from the solids? Okay. So remember, first we will discuss about the sedimentation process. Sedimentation process. So sedimentation process means the process by which we just settling down the heavier particles at the top of the bottom. That process is known as sedimentation. Okay. What do you mean by, sir, how we will settle down in them? Remember, solid particles are heavier than water particles. Okay. So if we will not disturb that solid particles, then after some times that solid particles will be settled down here. Okay. And in the upper part only the water will be present. Okay. So if we will not disturb the solid particles will be settled down at the bottom of the container. That process is known as sedimentation. Okay. Then, sir, how we will separate the water? Okay. Now the process by which the separation of water to the another container without disturbing that solid particles or sediments, that known as decantation. It means the things or the solid particles which are settled down here, that known as sediments. Okay. And the sedimentation decantation process, that decantation process, it follows to the process of sedimentation. Okay. It means after the sedimentation process, the decantation process can be done. Otherwise, if they will, the solid particles will be moved here and there in the container, then that process cannot be possible. Okay. So sedimentation means the settle down of heavier particles at the top of the container. That process known as sedimentation, and these solid particles which are settled down, that known as sediments. Okay. So decantation means the decantation that follows the sedimentation process. After the settling down of these sediments, we will remove that water into the another container without disturbing these sediments. Okay, that known as decantation process. Okay, so last process of the separation of undissolved solid particles from the liquid, that are so that process is known as filtration. Okay. That process is known as filtration. Filtration means we have to use the filter. In some of the places, you know, the filters are there. Okay, we are also drinking water by the filtration way also. Okay, so filtration means the separation of liquids, by the using filter. That process known as filtration. Okay, suppose in a container some of the water is there, okay, and some particles are undissolved particles, suppose sand inside it, some sand is present inside it. Okay, sand particles here. Then if we will use the filter, then we can remove the water from the sand. Okay, and this sand is known as residue, and the water is known as filter water. Okay, so these are the process involved to separation of solid particles which are not dissolved in water. Okay, now we will discuss about the particles, the solid particles which are dissolved in water. Okay, which are dissolved in water, liquids that is dissolved. What are the process we can help to remove the solid particles which are dissolved in water? What are they? Now, first process we will use the evaporation process. Evaporation. Then also we can use the condensation. Okay. Then last one is that is just wait. Okay, so two process, that is evaporation and condensation, both is here, okay, in your book. So evaporation and condensation process can be used to separate the solid particles which are dissolved in water. Suppose you know that ocean water, or if will be add some of the salts in water, it will be dissolved, yes or no? Then how can get that salt again? Now we can use this process, that is the evaporation process, by getting the salt and water also. Okay, so process means the process by which the water will be heated. After the vaporize of water particles, they will be leave the salt particles. Suppose here saline water is present. Okay, saline water means that is the water plus salt. Water plus salt particles are present. Okay, if we will give the heat to water of this, water will provide heat. If we will provide heat, then due to the heat, water will be started evaporate. Okay, and the salt, the rest salt will be present here. They will be left salt. Okay, so that process is known as evaporation and condensation. If when these water particles will be cooled, then again that changes to that when water vapors will be cooled, that will again changes to water particles. That known as your condensation process. Okay, so these are the process involved in which you can separate solid from solid particles. You can separate the solids which are dissolved in water. You can separate the solid particles which are not dissolved with the water. Okay, so by the help of this process we can separate them. Okay, so this about all over your chapter. Okay, so next class we will discuss the question answers. Okay, then we will go forward. Thank you.